Borderlands is a game of many guns, but today Marcus Munitions Stock is plummeting because I won't be using any guns. And when Vault Hunters stop shooting, that's when you know the recession is over and depression has begun. Can you beat Borderlands 4 without guns? I'm facing this challenge at hard difficulty, and I don't just mean the in-game setting. I will not be looking anything up, not even if Claptrap emails me his personal build guide, which would probably be awesome, to be honest. I'm raw dogging the game, going in blind and hoping for the best. Everything I know about this game, I learned myself. So if there's a better way to play, I don't know it. With that in mind, I watched the Vault Hunter intros closely and picked Rafa, whose arc knives might be my best bet to tear Kairos a new asshole. First thing on the agenda is a prison break before I end up like that poor sucker. Little did I know, I was next in line. It's nothing like a little spinal surgery to kickstart your day. I'm pretty sure that's actually a Tik Tok challenge. The Timekeeper uses these spinal bolts to control people, but an almost perfectly timed explosion is my ticket out of here. If it had been 15 seconds sooner, my spine would be slightly more intact, but you won't hear me saying Arjay botched this rescue mission. I threw a useless hunk of metal on the ground and tried to show off my only attack to Arjay, but he ignored me like you might ignore a child showing off their fidget spinner. It's just as well, he'll see my move soon enough. I entered a large room and saw my first foes, and I knew what needed to be done. I weaved, side to side, nimble as a gazelle, sure that my efforts would keep me safe from harm. They did not. So I crawled and meleeed an enemy to get a second wind, only to wind up back on the floor. Turns out Arjay can revive me, although I couldn't help but feel a little judged. Arjay is sick of my shit already, and I swear I saw him shake his head with disappointment. I tried sliding at a robot to avoid its bullets, but it broke my ankles first and then my body. Joke's on him, I'm better on my knees anyway. Wait. Arjay handed me a reusable healing device that's gonna be the hardest working little guy in the galaxy. The game taught me how to double jump, so I took that as a sign to assault my foes from the sky, and the prison break continued with impressive slides and double jumps that seemed to have no effect on whether or not I was perforated with bullets, but I bet I looked good doing them. I found a confiscated weapons chest, but it just was full of weapons. I slowly brute forced my way through more enemies and then got a grapple grabber, which increases my mobility. Then Arjay and I slid our way to freedom. Or so I thought, but nope, that's right, he just ditched me in a pile of sludge. Maybe he expected me to get mauled by manglers, but he didn't realize that double jump McStabby would actually be effective in combat. I got a little lost, and as much as I'd like to wipe this act of stupidity under the rug, maybe including it will get less commenters accusing me of pretending this is my first playthrough of the game. Genuinely, I thought this was where I was supposed to be going, and watching the recording, it doesn't make any more sense to me than it does to you. Apparently Arjay wasn't trying to ditch me, he just got caught up by a rogue breeze and whisked away, but we're together again. My inability to track enemies at close range is problematic, but maybe increasing my field of view to max will help. Look, I'm not good at games, I just play them, alright? Arjay said we'd go through that order plant, and then he rubbed his body on an actual plant, and it took my dumbass a little while to figure out he wasn't talking about an actual plant, but like a factory plant. Whoopsie. With double jumps and the grapple grabber, I flew around the battlefield clobbering enemies with my meat hunks, and I'm basically unstoppable. Please disregard this moment where Arjay's medicine skill is the only thing keeping my blood inside my body, because, like I said, I'm basically unstoppable. Arjay needed to hack a door open, so he sent me to find a stash that had a shield in it, which is quite helpful. We've almost escaped the prison, I just need to take one more slide with Arjay. Or not, because I don't think Arjay likes riding slides with me. I thought I was fun to slide with, I guess I'm not. That's a tough truth to swallow right before a boss fight. It clearly had me distracted, and that's why I died almost instantly and then bled out without Arjay to revive me while I stared into his disapproving eyes. In round 2, the Warden proved that the physics of walls mean nothing to him, and I proved that the physics of distance mean nothing to me. I found a cool grenade mod and accidentally threw it at Arjay, who I didn't notice was lying on the ground bleeding to death. While I revived him, I could only hope I was shaking my head as judgmentally as possible. Unfortunately, the Timekeeper activated my bolt and took over my body, using it to strangle Arjay. But Arjay selflessly transferred his echo to me, which blocked the Timekeeper's signal. So instead, the Timekeeper tapped into Arjay's bolt and made him stab himself in the chest. Maybe I should have been nicer to Arjay while I had the chance. One explosion later, and I'm waking up on the beach to face off against the final boss of the game. No, not Claptrap. I'm talking about mind-bogglingly bad optimization. Throughout this playthrough, I'm gonna be tweaking my settings here and there to try and get the game to run well. I guess my gaming rig is under Randy Pitchford's poverty line, but hey, that's the true AAA experience. Slapping my enemies to death takes about 4 swings, which means it's time to utilize my arc knives. There's no way I could have known that my arc knives were not stronger than melee attacks, but I do kind of feel locked in on Rafa at this point, so we're gonna make it work, one way or another. I reached level 3 and started increasing my melee damage before finding out that flying enemies are going to be a bit of a challenge. I very heroically ran away. I reached a boss fight against Splash Zone and tried to punch him to death, only to end up on my hands and knees crawling toward an enemy too far to reach in time. Splash Zone put me on my knees again and again and again. Don't tell my wife. I took a short break, and when I hopped back on for more punishment, Splash Zone had somehow spawned in before I entered the arena. I eventually figured out how to bounce my grenades over the wall to tag him, proving my high school geometry teacher was wrong to give me a C-. This combat style isn't sustainable, and I'm gonna need a real build, but I still managed to get Splash Zone to feel my wrath. From a distance. I picked up a glide pack, which lets me soar through the air majestically, and I also got a homing grenade that isn't half bad. A missed throw can actually turn into a surprise happy ending from behind. A good first impression, but sometimes first impressions are wrong, my sentiment changed a little when I saw how slowly my grenades traveled in the air. After all, my greatest weakness right now is flying enemies. The game tried to teach me to punch like I'm not already a practiced master. Claptrap electrocuted himself to send out a message of hope. He was screaming something fierce and I thought he was being dramatic. I was wrong. He's enduring an incredible amount of damage right now and I'm impressed. Claptrap is one handsome unit of a robot. He totally didn't slip me an oily fiver to include that line in the video. The great outdoors, where I can get one shot by a buffalo, or hide from turret fire behind cover only tall enough to protect my spicy bits. I hacked and slashed the turret and the badass she was dating, only to have a classic Borderlands moment occur. I killed the last enemy in the area and died seconds later, left to slowly bleed out alone. I miss Arjay. I tried to get revenge on the Wildhorn clan, but they downed me and danced around me as the last of my blood drained out. Every fight is a life or death situation, and death is really hogging the spotlight. I tried doing a side quest that wanted me to shoot something, so instead I threw a grenade, perfectly, at myself. Yeah, you're impressed, I can tell. Thankfully, I can double jump and melee to avoid using a gun. I leveled up enough to gain an augment that restores health on kill with my arc knives, which will hopefully make combat more manageable. I tried to help the local resistance fighters, even though they clearly need more combat training. It was fine, I took care of the situation myself, and I checked in on Martin after. I guess he had something on his hand, which explains absolutely none of his erratic behavior. I gained the ability to digistruct a vehicle, and my enemies showed me how to de-digistruct a vehicle. So I'm back to hacking and slashing, which is working slightly better now that I have more melee damage. I did something I should have done ages ago. I bound melee attack to left click. When I started this challenge, I had no idea just how many Borderlands enemies had largely abandoned the land aspect. A giant robot doggo threw up all over the floor, making it hard to play with him, but I proved yet again just how effective I am from my knees. I reached another boss fight, and it's another flyer. I followed him around from the ground, like a loser, trying desperately to bring him down to my level. Finally, I succeeded, and then I pushed him into the corner and stole his lunch money. I acquired a throwing knife grenade mod and gave it a try, and the damage was fantastic. I'm just gonna have to learn how to aim, and then it might actually be worth using. For one glorious moment, I looked like a god gamer, but that was just a lucky throw, and my pro gamer excuse here is that I'm wearing a wrist brace to stop the slow, insidious progression of carpal tunnel, and that makes it hard to aim. Please refer back to my excuse for any future missed knife throws. I punched a generator through a wall from 10 feet away, then met Zadra, whose house I just vandalized, and watched her get kidnapped because all of her defenses were disabled. She can help me break into the Timekeeper city, so I'm gonna have to save her. I used my skills to try and defeat the kidnappers and was awarded with some fairly generous critical hits, if you ask me. Zadra was taken to a factory that grinds up innocent Borderlands creatures, but it'll be hard for the factory to function when I finish taking out all its employees. I threw some explosives and landed a knife headshot that felt way cooler in the moment than it looked in the recording, and the next boss fight reveal made me seriously question my life choices. We're 4 boss fights deep, and 3 of them could fly. This one flying the highest of them all, far beyond the substantial range of my melee strikes. After missing a couple knife throws, I took cover under an awning and tried out a new action skill, the Apophis Lance. It decreases my gun handling while active, also known as absolutely no downside whatsoever. It did not do much damage, and the rest of the fight felt like I was throwing rocks and knives at a state-of-the-art drone. I mean, I literally spent 10 minutes throwing knives at a state-of-the-art drone. I couldn't help think about all the hundreds or even thousands of innocent creatures the factory was butchering while I was oppressed by the oppressor. Perseverance and patience won the day, and my oppression came to an end. I almost missed it, but I got my first legendary drop, and it's usable. A legendary rep kit with 3 charges that can get replenished on kill. An absolute godsend. I found this weird dome out in the world, and a boss spawned in. I warmed up with a few warning shots, then pulled out my arc knives and got to slashing. But I was too mobile for my own good and drifted just outside the dome, despawning the boss. Whatever juicy legendary he had for me is gone, just like Arjay. I took out my frustration on the local wildlife, proving I'm no better than the factory I just took down. With a legendary rep kit hitting my inventory for the first time, the hunger set in, and I only know of one boss that lives on the ground, so I started farming Splash Zone for drops. My backpack was full, so I checked out my SDUs. Virtually everything is useless except backpack capacity, so I mash-clicked it and got back to Splash Zone. Shockingly, he dropped double legendaries on my second attempt, one of which was a shield perfect for aiding my slaughter. My shield fires missiles every time I get a kill, and they are incredible. I found a drill site onslaught that has a boss named Sydney Pointy Legs at the end and farmed until a legendary dropped. This time I received a legendary grenade mod, and upon trying it out I realized just how lucky of a find it was. I have only found 2 ground-based boss fights in the starting area of the game, and both of them have legendary drops that autonomously target nearby enemies. My grenade will home in on enemies, blowing up and spawning babies that home in on enemies, blowing up and spawning babies that home in on enemies. I'm a father now, and I couldn't be prouder. With my new family, we killed Horus many times, each kill littering the ground with loot and reducing my FPS. But he finally gave me a legendary rep kit with the tank modifier and passive health regen. Seems like a kinda lucky drop, but I do like my current rep kit and I continued using it for now. With my babies flying around killing flyers for me, I started to question my opinions on child labor laws. There are far more upsides than I previously realized. I found a crawler in need of repair, and I thought that this was going to be another boss fight like the drill site earlier, but instead I got a vehicle skin that's more appropriate for a father of 15 grenade babies. I discovered entirely by accident that there's a ground pound ability, immediately killed a badass bulkhead with it, and then promptly forgot about its existence. My current story mission has me sabotaging a factory, which left me wondering if the whole game is just Borderlands factory vandalism simulator. The game told me to shoot an armored door, so I shot it with my fists. I reached level 16 and have substantial healing on every melee critical hit, but more importantly, every time I dash during my arc knives ability, my new augment leaves behind a grenade. I was once a father of 15, now a father of 50. My swarm of grenades will chase my enemies to the ends of the earth. Or Kairos, I guess. I put my new playstyle to the test against the bio bulkhead. It was a beautiful slaughter, grenades swarming in like rack. The big bad, Idolator Sol, has sent a spaceship to melt my friends, and despite how enthusiastic they are, I don't know if pitchforks are going to cut it. Thankfully, my factory destruction class credits carry over to spaceship destruction. I destroyed 3 critical systems inside the spaceship and jumped to freedom as the flying craft plopped to the ground. With Idolator Sol's offensive crippled, our offensive began. My ravenous children found enemies no matter where they hid, and we assaulted Idolator Sol's fortress. Idolator Sol himself was a big boy, clad in impenetrable armor that could only be made penetrable if I could get my hands on some locust gas. What a stroke of luck it is that he launched a locust gas canister right next to me. My grenade spam was far less impressive against a truly big beautiful boy, and Idolator Sol lasered me to the ground and I bled out before I could crawl to the nearby enemy. I re-examined my build for the boss fight, switching my augment to Dead Man Walking. My damage now gives me overshields, and with the mini pacemaker rep kit, I am like a fortress made of fists, and also knives. Each strike gave me just enough overshield to tank Idolator Sol's damage. I spent much of the fight about 3 inches deep inside of Idolator Sol's asshole, while he tried his best to armor it up and get me out of there. In the end, Idolator Sol was no match for a fortress made of knives and stuff, and I claimed his command bolt, which Zadra says we're gonna need to break into the Timekeeper's fortress. There are 2 more command bolts to get, both of which have their own story mission, and I lazily picked the one closest to my current location. On the way over, I found another world boss named Icebox, and I had him completely stagger locked, but he staggered right out of the circle. Then he kept walking further and further away, and I accidentally dashed out of the circle, and he despawned. We are 0 for 2 on world bosses so far. Where there's Vault Hunters, Moxie has a bar, and the main story brought me to it. I struggled to pay attention to my next quest objective for some reason, but the mission line from my echo got me back on track. Zane showed me his pet thresher Sophia, and she's adorable. We played a game of fetch that dismantled a bunch of bandit encampments in the area. Combat is getting more chaotic, and it was at this time I realized a terrible design choice made by the Borderlands team. The melee button is the same as the grapple button, which means when I'm slugging it out, I might accidentally grapple away or pull an explosive barrel into my hands. I just want to mash my melee attack button in peace, but one press too many and I've pulled my own demise into my hands and served myself up on a platter. Speaking of served up on a platter, Sophia didn't make it. Killed by Kairos, the big bad in this region. I met Levane, and my gaze was immediately drawn to her huge, sumptuous elbow bubbles. She tried her best to redirect my gaze, and when I didn't take the bait, she sent me off to do some electrical engineering, which was also suspiciously bubble-shaped. I did the job Vault Hunter style, also known as smashing shit until it starts working again. I had to stand all the way up on my tippy toes and double jump to reach the last one, but the city of Carcadia has been repaired and powered up, and I have more allies. I tried to lower a bridge to gain access to an enemy stronghold, but it was stubborn and refused. A normal problem for most playthroughs is instead a parkour challenge here. A parkour challenge I failed spectacularly by falling off the bridge and then needing to spend 5 minutes working out how to get back up to it. The beams are just out of reach, but that's when I remembered Old Faithful, my trusty throwing knife. The beam was incredibly stingy, requiring 8 knife throws before it finally went down. I had a more intelligent approach on the second one, jumping on top of it and disciplining it for misbehaving in the first place. Zane has set out in search of revenge for Sophia, and you're never going to believe it, but we have to disassemble yet another factory. This game is about factories and how to break them, and you can't convince me otherwise. On the way over, I found another world boss, which I carefully fought by running away and hucking grenades, at least until I got impatient, went into melee, and became one with the corrosive puddle. 0 for 3 on world bosses. While laying waste to the factory, I reached level 20, and the game informed me I can now use class mods. If ever there was a time to stop and do some farming, this would be it, but I'm already here and I don't want to lose my progress, and I'm pretty sure I can handle one more boss fight before upgrading my gear. Idolator Sol's factory had creatures, but this one has people in it, and one of them is a friend of ours named Quint. We've got to disassemble this factory before it disassembles Quint's nervous system. The boss fight was against a gentleman named Driller Hole, and it might have been challenging except that my arc knives stagger him every other hit, completely negating the fight. Everything was going great for me. Not so great for Quint though. I didn't even notice there was a timer to save him because I was too busy fondling the loot. And when I did notice, I used my vast experience to disassemble much of the factory, but when I noticed the marked structures, I paused the game to think. I need to destroy 3 large structures way up high in the sky, and I have 20 seconds to do it. 20 seconds to deal enough damage to a far away object and save my friend. I switched over to throwing knives and the Apophis Lance and hit it with everything I had, which was not even close. Quint didn't make it. Now keep in mind, I had only 20 seconds left to kill 3 of these things. It took me over 5 minutes to destroy all of them so I could move on. With the gear I have now, Quint was never going to make it. While I was down here, I farmed the boss a few more times looking for legendaries. He drilled a hole in a wall. I can't see the hole, but he is the driller hole, so it must be there. I eventually got a legendary grenade mod to try out, and she was pretty good, but unfortunately I just couldn't love her enough. I've already given my heart to my children. Children that I promptly replaced with better, more capable ones at my soonest opportunity. I upgraded my shield too, but it had a modifier improving guns on it, so I kept farming, and then I got a new one that actually had a modifier improving guns on it. Fucking fantastic. Back on the story mission, I needed to clear some debris by shooting a bomb, so I gave it a hearty whack and it barely even stung. These jump pads can launch me straight into Kairos base, but they need a little bit more juice to get me all the way there. And on my way over to the juice store, I found another world boss. This time, I decided to totally play it safe, keeping my distance patiently as my grenades ripped into the who am I kidding? I pulled out my arc knives and I tried to slash the fucker's wings off. And I did. World boss down, with an assortment of certified trash can quality loot. The juice store itself stood little chance against my swarm of young adult grenades. I found a large vehicle and played a game of chicken, which I lost. Cause of death was clearly a heart attack, as none of those drills were remotely close enough to tickle me to death. I acquired the juice and powered up the jump jets, launching myself into Kairos' main base of operations. In no time, I had made it to the drop chute leading to Kairos herself, and I switched over to Dead Man Walking for the boss fight. There was really nothing to it. A little bit of hack, a little bit of slash, a little bit of FPS drops, a monster stutter. It's all part of the AAA experience. Callus, the Ripper Queen, met her end, and I acquired her command bolt, and more importantly, I avenged Sophia. Oh, and Quint, I guess, but I mean mostly Sophia. I maxed out my backpack SDU, so I'll have plenty of storage for all the guns I'm not picking up. There's a scientist named Lictor who has the last command bolt we need, and his whole deal is that he's jealous of sirens or he wants to lick them or something, I don't really know. He can do whatever he wants though, because most of his opposition are wielding pitchforks. I'm really not much better, I'm wielding the equivalent of an electrified pitchfork most of the time. I was sent to meet the Wildcat, and thanks to my impatience, I tried to jump without full glider charge, and then desperately tried to not die, only delaying the inevitable. Moments later, I showcased the worst movement tech in the universe to die again by falling almost instantly. It was truly remarkable how many stupid decisions I managed to make in a single cave. In an attempt to save 10 seconds, I turned a 1-minute walk into a 5-minute walk. I finally reached the Wildcat, a siren you might recognize named Amara. I flicked a Marcus bobblehead for good luck, but I doubt it does anything for Vault Hunters without guns. Amara wants to rescue Lilith, who's trapped in the moon or something, and told me to meet her nearby. So naturally, I found a world boss on the way, whipped out my arc knives, and collapsed like a giraffe on roller skates. I haven't learned anything, and I plan to keep it that way. I met up with Amara, who showed off her siren arms by punching us into another, you guessed it, factory. I engaged in some textbook factory vandalism, but some of it was a little out of reach, so I had to use a little moderate parkour ability to get myself up there, and also glitched into the scenery. My curiosity, of course, got the better of me, and I explored Glitch World until I was completely stuck. With no other option, I ended my existence, proving that curiosity killed the cat is a saying that has some merit. I did some more melee parkour and exposed the heart of the factory, which was surprisingly durable. On my way out of the factory I'd just dismantled, I found a world boss and died to it. For my next story quest, I was pretty sure I could feel the factory quivering in its boots when it heard I was on my way. Lictor opened a rift and sent a new type of enemy at me. It has crystals all over it, protecting it from damage until they break. Amara and my children chewed his crystals to pieces, and he was next. I spent the fight practicing to be a middle manager. I just watched everyone work. Amara tickled a rift and a masked figure burst out of it, then mysteriously took off running and phase walked away. My build was starting to feel a little weak, evidenced by my abysmal attempts to farm the vile prototype. It seemed so easy during the story mission, but Amara has like 8 arms, so maybe she was doing all the heavy lifting. I did finally beat the vile prototype, receiving a legendary shield for my trouble, which increased my melee damage at the cost of an armor segment. On top of that, each segment break also caused a mini nova. It's pure offense, which is either amazing or terrible, and I can't tell which. My melee damage plus the explosive novas did really big damage, but they left a lot to be desired when it came to survivability, which is one of my main issues. I certainly enjoyed what little time we spent together, but when I got a new shield with melee damage that didn't slowly kill me with each attack, I swapped over to it. Amara and I confronted Lictor. Overconfidence cost Amara an arm. It's fine, she has 7 more. Her cat dragged her away by biting the shoulder of her stumpy arm, which seemed agonizingly painful. Lictor is a very ugly man, which is why it makes sense he wanted to hide his face in his clam cocoon. My first attempt to crack it open was a fail. This boss fight is an absolute nightmare for my playstyle. I can't jump high enough to reach Lictor's G-spot, so I'm forced to throw grenades or insert my blades directly into his face hole. After throwing grenades for 5 minutes straight, I destroyed Lictor's armor. Now I get to try to melee attack a boss that can teleport, and for a dude named Lictor, he is a bit more handsy than I was expecting. Not that I would have preferred an alternative. I had several close calls, but every so often I lucked my way into perfect positioning to land a flurry of blows. Lictor's hitbox is as big as his ego, allowing me to punch him from great distances. I don't know which phase of the fight was more irritating, but I'm grateful that it's over. The third command bolt has been claimed. The masked figure appeared again, and it turned out to be my good friend Arjay, back from the grave. He's a little different after being Lictor's bitch for a while. He has gained some pretty awesome phase powers though. I experimented with a new build I was really excited about. I have a class mod giving me a point in booming business, which spawns more grenades whenever I land critical hits. It took me a while to notice, and I did actually use a gun for testing purposes only, but the class mod is completely broken, and it doesn't matter how many critical hits I land, it's never going to spawn more grenades for me. The ability itself works fine, it's just if you add points to it with a class mod, it breaks. Which is a shame because I was excited to create an infinite grenade build. It would have been the shining star of this video, but instead, I'll have to settle for a slightly above average number of grenades and a melee build to go with it. With 3 command bolts in hand, I can go take down the Timekeeper and save Lilith. I don't know in which order. Looks like it's gonna be Lilith first. Amara has a new robot arm, and she blames it when she can't at Siren well enough to pull some clamps out of place. The arm must have been an incredible hindrance because I released the clamp with a simple flick of the wrist. I mean, hell, I managed to release another clamp while flying by at high speed. Her siren powers must really be on the fritz. With the clamps released, this space elevator is ready to take us to the moon, just as soon as I figure out how to properly align this dish. Because I'm a real Vault Hunter, I tried bashing it and was shocked that that didn't work. I of course tried smacking it more vigorously before discovering it was yet another job for my grapple grabber. I have another character I'm playing through with some friends, and I was pleased to see that they also tried to smack the dish. It's just the Borderlands way. Atop the space elevator, Arjay came back and overpowered Amara's phase lock. She's having an incredibly tough time protecting her arms, probably because she has so many to keep track of. We sent Arjay packing, and the game finally asked me to punch something. I obliged. We reached the moon, Elpis, and even in its poor condition, it's inspiring to see that life finds a way. I exterminated as much of that life as possible, used my old friend, the jump pad, learned how to start an Elpis lawnmower, and discovered that Callus has somehow survived death. First Arjay, now Callus. Death is a little underpowered on Kairos, it seems. Amara magically became a strong, capable siren again, though you can see the struggle clearly in her eyes. I rescued Lilith from the phase, but she's feeling sleepy. Callus threw a temper tantrum and broke the moon, and now I have to beat 5 nights at Callie's before I'm allowed to leave. On night 1, I threw some grenades. On night 2, I did a couple of melee strikes. On night 3, I almost died, punching a mine to revive, got downed again, and crawled even further to barely revive once more. On night 4, I played it safe and threw more grenades. But on night 5, I blundered and landed on a fireball. With nothing to hit but Callus, I crawled over and meleeed wildly until I claimed a second wind from the animatronic beast herself. The chest taunted me with a legendary that only makes guns better, and we all headed back to Moxie's bar to rest up for the final push to the Timekeeper. Moxie showed up and talked to Lilith, and I think we came up with a plan on how to get into the city, but I was having trouble paying attention for some reason. Alright, it's not my fault that this happened, unless you mean in the literal sense, but I made it to the Timekeeper city and then hopped on to play with my friends, and we actually took it all the way to the end of the game and beat it. So I've now unlocked specializations, which I won't be using, but the rest of this playthrough is no longer my first time experiencing the game, it's my second. I value my gaming time with friends and regret nothing. With that said, my upcoming battle against the Timekeeper has a surprise twist that I could never have predicted. I took a run at the Timekeeper with the gear that I had, but my damage was pitiful. The only truly incredible thing that happened during this attempt was me getting the greatest second wind of my entire life. All the little enemies in this fight are flyers, which means there's no way for me to get up after getting downed, with one exception. If the Timekeeper perfectly times his attack that knocks me into the sky, it sets the stage for something extraordinary. I'm a little sad that this attempt didn't end up reaching victory. But this attempt needed to fail so that something else extraordinary could happen. Now, I wanted to use my grenade build against the Timekeeper. I'm sure there is some other grenade mod that's drastically better for this run than my swarm grenade, I just don't know what it is or where to get it. So I was farming Sydney Pointy Legs trying to get an upgrade, and I spent literally hours going at it, and I never got a new grenade mod. I guess I used up all my luck earlier in the playthrough, I don't know, but I was having none of it, and I finally hit a wall and just said, fuck it, we're going back to melee build. I have a new rep kit, a new class mod, tons of damage reduction, over shields every time I deal damage, and most importantly, I believe in myself. Positive visualization. I am going to hack the Timekeeper to pieces. Because of my new build, I can keep my arc knives out essentially forever as long as I keep attacking and landing critical hits. And that's exactly what I did. But the Timekeeper has a phase 2, where he gets much bigger and also seems to have immense trouble attacking enemies that are rubbing their bodies on him. My overshields were charged to full, my arc knives were slicing, and then that's right, the game has had about enough of me bullying it for being bad at physics, so it weaponized its jank physics against me. I instantly failed my quest to kill the Timekeeper as I sailed further and further away at incredible speed. You might think that I'm gonna hit a wall soon and respawn, but you'd be wrong. I went into this blue foggy zone and then fully cleared my way through it and found myself hurtling towards the light. After hurtling towards the light for some time, I managed to get through it and saw that there was a star off in the distance, and also, this is the best my FPS has ever been. And I'm not even here to enjoy it. I wasn't even in the room while this was recording. I was so irritated after farming Sydney for hours and then having this happen that I left the room. I hurtled into the distance for several more minutes. In fact, it took a total of 5 minutes and 5 seconds before my flight came to an end, and I finally respawned in the tower. I came back ready to face off against the Timekeeper once more, and I had a magnificent view during the battle, took advantage of a few moments to style on my opponent, and after 20 minutes of hacking and slashing, I defeated the Timekeeper. I'm sure there's some crazy infinite damage melee Rafa build that somebody's already found that could have saved me a great deal of suffering, but you know what? I accomplished my goal, and I did it the only way I knew how. Oh fuck, I forgot about Arjay. He was upset, he threw a tantrum, and I tried to just let him cry it out, but he is relentless, so I hacked him to pieces and finally put him to rest. I'm still trying to figure out what my style is as a YouTube creator, and this video was meant to be chill and Mitten Squad inspired. I really enjoyed making a calmer video, and I hope you enjoyed watching it.